Hey girl, my name is Anel. Welcome to the Brave in Her podcast, where we inspire, empower, and motivate by sharing our stories of bravery. I strongly believe that by sharing our stories, we open ourselves to healing, but also serve to give hope and inspiration to those who are dealing with a tough situation. We will talk about all topics under the sun. Now let's hear your stories of bravery. Hey girl, thank you for being here for today's episode. In today's episode, we have my friend Becky, who is here to share with us her experience with being a donor family. Her dad donated his organs to a few recipients, and so she's here to talk to us about that whole experience. Hi, Becky. How are you?
Hi. I'm so good. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for being here again. You were here a few months ago, and you're here again to share this very important story.
It doesn't feel very important sometimes, but it is. I know how important it is that this gets out there, and you get emotional about it. So it's like, how do you talk about it to people, or how do you encourage people when I know how hard it is to make those decisions? Like even now, my brother won't talk about it at all. He does not want to have this conversation with anybody. So I feel like it's really important to be the one that can talk about it, because I know it's changing lives. I know it's saving people's lives.
It is. And I'm a testament to that. My life was changed by someone like your dad and your family, someone, a family that made a decision that they wanted to save lives.
Yeah.
And here I am.
And forever ago, like you've been doing this a long time.
24 years and counting. Thank God.
That's so crazy. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, so do you want me to just tell the story and just kind of give you guys the background on everything?
Yeah. So if you can just start by telling us about your dad, who your dad was, and, we'll go from there. We want to know who your dad was.
Okay. So when he came in, so really crazy story. I actually didn't know he wasn't my biological dad till I was 23 years old. Because when he and my mom got together, he just decided I was going to be his. And so I didn't find out till later in life that actually he just chose me. He picked me as his daughter. And then my mom and him had my brother and sister after that. But he never treated me any different. Like I said, I had no idea. He was a hardworking man. There were times when I was a kid when money was tight, and he was working full-time at Costco, full-time at Safeway to the max of their hours. And he had a paper route that he used to take me on in the mornings to like throw back in the day, way back when we'd throw the paper. He did that for a little while to make sure that the ends were met. And he always had great morals, and he always had great character. He was super, super funny and loved to make people laugh. He also loved to scare people. That was probably his favorite thing ever. So he would like stand around the corner as you were coming, because he could hear you, and he'd be like, "Wah!" Right? And you'd freak out, and "Gosh, Dad, why?" And he'd laugh, and it was so great. He loved dogs. He was a super advocate of that. He loved fishing. We grew up in Alaska. And so he loved fishing and camping, and he was a very simple person. He didn't need a lot of flashy things. He just really enjoyed family time. He enjoyed being outside. He was, in fact, working so my mom could retire early because he was making enough. So he was just providing for her, and at the time, my grandma, because she was elderly, and so they had taken her on. So he just had a very loving heart. He was a very giving person. And he was a great sounding board. If I had something that I needed to like walk through for a life decision, I called my dad. And same with my brother and sister. It was a huge loss because he's dad, right? You go to your dad when you need comfort and you need security and you're not sure, am I making the right decision? He always wanted to be a grandpa. So he got to meet my son and my daughter. In fact, the accident actually happened on her first birthday. So he got 2 years with Maddox and 1 year with Haley, which wasn't enough. I think about that sometimes now. I'm like, man, they would be like best friends now, you know, because he just
Yeah.
loved being with kids and grandkids, and he's a good human being for sure.
Yeah, he sounds like he was an amazing human being, down to earth and really family oriented and just giving back. Like he had
Yeah.
that heart of gold.
Yes. He used to watch Disney movies with us when we were a kid, and then we would like quote him literally till like the day he passed away. Him and I quoted a line out of The Lion King to each other because it was just like a thing, you know, like just funny little stuff like that my dad just embedded in my family. Like the little things matter. And when the world starts to fall apart or things start to go sour, you will have your family. So take care of them. And that's how we lived.
Yeah, that's great. And do you want to tell us what a little bit about the event that led you guys to have to make that decision for him?
So my dad was working nights at a company that makes the cans for those like Pillsbury Doughboy, the pop cans. He used to work at a company
like
for
the
that.
canisters?
This Cinco or something was it? I don't remember.
Oh, okay.
The name. Yeah, but they make the cans where you peel it and smack it on the counter, it pops open. That's what he was doing. He was managing that at night, right? And so he was, like I say, he was sole provider for my mom and my grandma. And he went to work. And in Texas, it's nice in the summertime. So he had driven his motorcycle to work. And about, I think it was 1.5 miles from work, he was struck by a drunk driver who was high on pills and drinking. And my dad didn't have a helmet on, which in Texas is not required, but shame on him. Although the brain doctor, neurologist or whatever later said it wouldn't have mattered. The way the impact was, it wouldn't have saved his life. But he flew forward off of the motorcycle and over the gentleman's truck from eyewitnesses. And when he landed, he basically landed like on his head. So it like snapped the back where the head and the neck connect. I don't know how graphic, so I'm sorry if that's like affecting people. But so they called 911 right away and get him to the hospital in Dallas. That's like the big care for the big accidents, the big emergencies. And then they had to start calling my mom and my brother went to the hospital. And they said he was non-recoverable, which feels like dramatic, like by the time I got there, because I had to go get my sister and load up my littles. By the time I got to the hospital, it was like 2:00 in the morning and the accident had occurred around 11. So by the time I got there, they're saying he's non-recoverable. And I'm like, but he's not broken. He had no broken bones in his body, except where the break was in the back. He had no organ damage at all. There wasn't any internal bleeding. Like literally the only thing that broke was what keeps you alive in the back, where the blood can flow into the brain. That had gotten crushed. So there was no blood flowing to the brain. So then it was causing swelling, but not a fluid swelling. The actual brain was swelling because it didn't have any blood or oxygen going to it. And so they kept saying he's non-recoverable. We needed to say our goodbyes. And I'm like, no. He has like a black eye, right? Like, I don't understand. Like, wait, just wait, like take a second and breathe. Right. And, in fact, my brother tried to attack the doctor because he was obviously high emotion, and the doctor just, I don't feel like had enough empathy, probably because unfortunately he sees this all the time, but he was just like, I'm sorry, this is the way it is. You need to say your goodbyes. And my brother tried to attack him and we're like, stop, right? We don't need you going to jail tonight on this whole thing. And so we were standing in the room with my dad, and a lady walks in and says, I need to speak with you about something. It's pretty important. And so she was from this, I think they're called the STAR program or the STA program or something like that. And she takes us into this little conference room just down the hall, and it's her and a nurse and my mom and my brother and sister and I. And she says, with all of the results that we have from what they'd run on my dad, they could see like that was all that was broken. And they needed to find out if he could be a donor, because he had a durable power of attorney for, like he did not want to be on life support. So he made those decisions clear of mind ahead of time for like end of life stuff, but there wasn't anywhere about the donation. And so, my mom is like crying, like, of course, like sobbing. Cause now she's like, this is real. Like my dad's not going to get better. Right. This doctor, I think is being honest. And my brother's like, nope, we're not, right. Like, we're not talking about this. Nope, we're not doing it. And he like storms out of the room. And my sister just like looks at me, and I realize like, uh-oh, I've got to be the one to like say what we're going to do. So I look at my mom and I grab her hand and I'm like, Mom, he's the kindest, most.
It's okay, Becky.
Sorry.
It's okay. I know it's really hard.
I told her that he's the kindest, most generous man we know. And he would have taken his shirt off of his own back to provide for others. The opportunity to give life would mean a lot. And my sister just started nodding her head as she's crying through it. And the lady is sitting there with this stack of paperwork, that just seems so like, this cannot be happening, right? And my mom's like, well, do we have to decide right now? And the lady says he's going to die probably in the next hour. And we need to stop that from happening if you're going to give his organs, because we have to keep the organs alive. And then it's like, now he's not even a human anymore, right? Like now they're just going to get his blood pressure back up, and they've got to level everything out. They've got to give him medication to keep things working. So, sorry. I thought I was going to be able to hold it together for all this.
It's okay.
But so my mom starts just signing. There's a ton of forms. Like it's not an easy decision where you just like sign a document and they keep him alive. After like the third or fourth signature, the nurse leaves the room though. I think those must have been the most important papers. And a staff of people start showing up. Like all of a sudden his blood pressure's going up and his heart rate is right. And you've got the ventilator keeping him alive. And they've got all these things that have to happen now because they've got to get families brought in. Because I didn't know that they bring the families to the patient. So, and a lot of times I think they try to find patients in the same state, but if they have a top of the list donor, they'll fly them in with their surgical team. So the person we had to wait the longest for was for the heart, because he was being brought in from another state. But so we agreed to donate all viable body parts down to anything science needed. So we gave away, he gave away both kidneys, his liver, his heart, his lungs, his eyes, his skin, bone marrow, stem stuff, the pancreas for study. I'm trying to think of like, it's hard. I feel like I blocked some of this out, which is weird, but like, I just remember there was like a lot of documents on, are you comfortable with this organ? Are you comfortable with this organ? And mom just had to agree to just like part my dad away is how it felt. Like in all honesty, you're parting your human being out, and he's the most important in the family. So we went through all these documents, and then they stabilized dad. And then they were like, if you've got other family that he needs to say goodbye to or whatever, there's time. We're going to perform as the surgeries on Monday. So, or Sunday. Yeah. Cause the accident was on Thursday. So Sunday afternoon was like, they were trying to get everybody scheduled in. So he had several brothers and sisters that came down from another state to say their goodbyes. My mom's brother flew in to say his goodbyes. And each of us got our time to like stand in the room with him and talk to him. And I remember when I was in there, because they have to keep doing the tests. They have to make sure he's not waking up, right? And I remember while I'm in the room, the nurse comes in and he's like, okay, I'm gonna just do this series of tests with your dad. It'll be just a couple minutes, right? And I'm like, okay. And so they have to like touch his eyeball, and they have to like give him a pain sensory in the chest, and the tube that's in his throat, they literally, which is gross, but they like stuff it down his throat further to make sure he can't gag on it. And like weird stuff that
Oh,
you don't want
wow.
to physically see happening, right? But
Right.
also, if he's coming back, I want to know he's coming back, right?
True.
So I'm in there and he's like, he's telling my dad, hey, Randy, I'm going to check for your pain in your chest. Okay, Randy, I know it's weird, but I got to touch your eyeball. And I'm like watching this happen and finally go, why do you keep telling him that? And he's like, what? I'm like, why are you talking to my dad if he's non-recoverable? What are you doing? And he said, well, science shows that the last sense to go is your hearing. And so I want to make sure I'm respectful of him, because if his body and soul are still connected, because he hasn't fully died, I want to make sure he knows I'm respecting him. And that was like, right? Like my brain was like, what? And he goes, which is why they say your goodbyes. And I'm like, you're kidding me. And he's like, no, you say your goodbyes, because the last thing that they lose is their hearing. And so then it's like, oh, wow. So now it's like, Dad, I want you to know this. And you're trying to think of everything you ever said that hurt his feelings, and you want to apologize. And I'm going to do a good job. And I'm going to be a great big sister. And I'm going to take care of my mom. And I promise to raise Maddox and Haley the way that he would have been proud of. And, just gosh dang it. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
So anyways, it takes them till Sunday to get everything in order. And it's a double-edged sword for me, because for those several days that we were at the hospital, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, his beard was growing, like the hair on his face was growing, and the hair on his head was even like, he used to shave his head super short because he hated it. And so like the little hair on his head was growing, and his body was warm to the touch, and he smelled like my dad, right? Like,
yeah.
I'm like, how can he not be waking up? Even the black eye like lessened in the front.
It was getting better.
Yeah, his body was doing everything it was supposed to be doing. His brain just didn't work anymore, right? And so it was a blessing in that I got to spend the time with my dad for those few days. Everyone got to say what they needed. For a tragic moment, we got a peaceful end. But it's also hard because you're watching him physically look like he's getting better, but he's not going to wake up. And so they hung a flag when we did the donation. They hung a flag on the floor, so everyone knew we had a donor. And then the team came in on Sunday at 5 and had a moment of silence on the floor with us. And then they wheeled him off. And it was like, we just stayed on the floor. They offered us the option of following all the way. And I was like, Mom, we're not going to do that. Like, this is where we're going to say goodbye. So we just watched him leave the double doors. And my sister had a voicemail. He had actually called her the day of the accident to go over some silly fender bender she had been in, and he was talking to her about insurance. And we went back to, everybody went to my house, and my mom and my sister and I were laying in my bed, and she played that voicemail like 100 times, like just to know, like, that's the last time we're going to talk to him, or like, that's the last time I'm going to hear his voice, except for in video. And I don't know, it was a super traumatic, painful experience. But later my mom got notices that he actually saved 8 lives. So
wow.
In the long run, like, you have to kind of try to step back and see that, like, your worst day became someone else's very best.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're probably gonna have to edit so much.
No, I mean, it's really hard. What you guys went through, it's really, really hard. And then it wasn't like, it's not a good thing. But I think at least you guys had that opportunity to have that time to say goodbye.
Yeah. It was powerful in that, like I said, everybody got to say what they needed to say, and also, like, the last interaction any of us had with my dad was literally saying, I love you, because he, my on his way out the door, my brother, I guess, was like playing video games. So they kind of like did that dad son smack talk back and forth to each other and was like, okay, love you. Well, my dad was leaving at night when my mom was going to bed. So her last thing that she said to him was, I love you. When I went to bed that night, talked to my dad, it was like, all right, love you. So literally the last thing each of us said to him was, I love you. And, not very many people get that opportunity.
No.
And not very many people get the opportunity to go and say their goodbyes to a warm body that smells like they're human, right? Because tragic accidents happen all the time and the person's just gone. And there isn't anything we can do about it. And I got the very best goodbye. I didn't have to watch him ever be in pain. I didn't have to watch him whittle away out of a sickness. He just wasn't there anymore. He just didn't make it to work, and then his work, a couple people from his work came in and also like checked on my mom, and his insurance, technically should have dropped my mom, but they kept my mom insured for 3 years after that to just, do something for her. And so it just, it was a peaceful way to say goodbye, but it was still hard. It's still hard. Like obviously I cry about it still, just talking about it. And like for his birthday or the anniversary date, or, he officially was pronounced dead August 1st, 2015.
Wow.
Which I also count as a blessing, because my daughter's birthday would have forever been that Papa died on her birthday. So because of the donation and because of the event and how it all played out, we don't have to tell her that. We don't have to live in that. Not that it takes away from like the accident, but also like she deserves to just celebrate her day. And now it doesn't have to be, well, my grandpa died on my day, so everybody's super sad. Instead, everybody just waits that one more day to give Haley her birthday day, and then we mourn my dad. So, yeah, that's the story. That's the story. I did it.
It's a beautiful story. And, I'm sorry that your family had to go through so much pain.
I don't know how you do these interviews all the time.
This is the first one that I'm actually like crying. And, I'm on the other end, like, in my case too, someone passed away, for me to live. My donor was not a living donor, was also a deceased donor. So, thank you for sharing the story, because I've never been in contact with my donor family. And just hearing, and, I can't say that like I relate to the pain, but, I can hear, or understand, that side, that, what my donor family went through 24 years ago.
Right. Well, and for me to know a donor and to see that you're like actively trying to push this place in our medicine forward to help more and more people and to advocate for this kind of life makes me know like I did it right, because now you've gotten to live, right? You've got a beautiful life with your husband and daughter, and you guys are doing life because someone else was gifting that to you. And so I don't take it small. Like it's a big feat that you do this all the time and that you live this life. And so it makes me know, like, even though we don't know the people, we know like a man and a woman each got a kidney. We know that a man got a liver. We know that a man got a heart. Right. Like, but my mom was not she doesn't want to know. She's just not like, she's like, I don't think I could handle it that someone's alive in my face because your dad's dead. Right. So she just kept it very basic with like the very basic information you get in the beginning. And then every year she gets a little something like I don't want to call it like an anniversary token, but like a little something from the organization, just as like we remember you and we appreciate you kind of thing.
Yeah.
But we have never been in contact with the family either, because it just isn't for us, I think, Yeah.
And, it's different for everybody. Like I was telling you earlier, that being an ambassador for Donate Life, or in my region is one legacy. I think for yours, you said a star.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you get to see different stories, and some people are comfortable with knowing about the recipients, and others are not. And it's just a very personal decision, and it's just everyone grieves differently. So what's not okay for you might be okay for someone else, or vice
Yeah.
versa.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
it's totally fine.
Yeah. Meeting people where they're at.
Yeah.
For
and
sure. Yeah.
and who knows, maybe one day you would like to know, and or maybe not.
Right. Well, we just are coming up on, this is 6 years, 15 to 20. Yeah, this will be our 6-year anniversary. So I think that, as you're right, as time goes on, my mom may one year just open it up and want to know, like, how did things work out? Especially because I know one of the girls that got the kidney was pretty young. So I think she may come to that point, but I just go at her pace on this stuff, like,
Yeah.
I'm okay either way. If we meet them, then we meet them. If we don't, then we don't.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's been like 24 and a half years since the kidney transplant, and I never got in contact with my donor family. And I thought, oh, maybe 24 years later, it's a loss. Like, what's the point of reaching out now?
Yeah.
But I just want them to know that their son, him giving me this kidney to live was not in vain. um I'm taking care of it, and obviously it's 24 and a half years later, and it's still working for me and still keeping me alive. And in honor of him, it's why I created this podcast too, because I want him to know that I'm going after my dreams. And um yeah, like, his gift to me was like the best thing that he could have given me.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's how I feel with my dad. Like, literally, I mean, I say that a lot. Like, our worst day was someone else's very best.
Yeah.
So it just kind of like balance, right? Like, for every time that something horrible happened. And I think about things too, like I made sure to put donor on my driver's license. My mom has done the same. My husband has done the same, right? Like, this opened our eyes up. I think my sister too. I don't know if my brother has yet. He's still like, he holds it in. Like, he doesn't let this stuff out. But everybody put donor on their list because it was like, no, it is an important decision, but also I don't ever want someone to have to make this choice for me. Right? Because as
Right.
the family member, you're like, are we parting out our parent? Are we parting out our kid? Are we, right? Like, you're
Yeah.
already experiencing the pain and the hurt, and now you have to make these kind of decisions. And so I just took that out of their hands. Like, they'll never have to worry. And when I, wrote out, because I'm like crazy number 3 on the Enneagram scale. So I already have like my will wrote out and everything ready for, you never know, my life insurance policy, right? But I made sure to even put in my will why I took medical decisions in my own hands and out of theirs, because of what I lived through. Because I never want my children or my husband or anybody to have to be like, well, what would she want? Well, what
Yeah.
would, so I feel like getting ahead of it and advocating for yourself and making decisions that you truly would want so that your family doesn't have to second guess it is powerful. And
Yeah.
it frees you up to be like, in the end, when my last day is here, they don't have to worry, because I got my ducks in order, right? Like, I've got the life insurance policy. So financially, my children are provided for a long time. Medically, they won't have to make decisions if it's an accident or something, because I've already taken care of all the decisions for them. All they have to do is grieve.
Yeah.
All they have to do is process their emotions in the moment. They will have to make no decisions. They will have to come up with no decision. Like, they can just be in the moment instead of in the paperwork.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I think that's really important, because you are taking that pressure off your family.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end, it will be your will, right? So
Yep.
like you said, they don't have to second guess, or they don't have to like think like, oh, what would a Becky or Anel done? What they wouldn't have to, I guess, not guess, but or not assume, what's the word? I guess figure it out,
Yeah.
what would have you want, or what, me, or, whoever.
Right.
So I think that is very important to leave that, when you're still alive, because this is what I want my body to serve, right? So
Yeah.
either do you want to be, or not to be.
Yep. And like I said, it's a gift. In my mind, it's a gift because that stack of paperwork is like forever burned in my brain. Like, really? And then,
Yeah.
like I said, to go organ by organ by organ in the body, like it literally felt like porting out my dad. So
Yeah.
I was like, nope, I'm not doing
sorry.
that. I'm not doing that to my children, my spouse. I am going to do this ahead of time. And my spouse and I talked about it so that we knew, like, okay, here's our wishes and here's what we're going to do to make sure that those wishes are fulfilled, so that when we go and everybody can be just in that, because it's already hard enough to lose somebody, whether you lose them from a tragedy, you lose them because they were sick, you lose them because they were old. Death is sad on every level.
Right.
And there is a sorrow that you feel in the moment and for moments to come, right? Weeks, days, months, years for some people. So I feel like letting you just be in that space of sorrow and grief without the technicalities attached is a gift. It's my last gift that I will give to my children.
Yeah. Do you think your dad would have been proud of you guys making this decision for him?
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, I think that he thought he was going to live a really long life. And so I think he didn't think his organs would be viable for donation, because he always talked about being old. My dad wanted to get old and sit on a front porch with my mom. So I think that was the only reason he never considered putting the donation stuff out, because everything else was in his affidavit for the from the DNR to everything. Like, he had put it all together. All we had to decide on was the donation. So it was a huge learning experience for me to be like, we don't know. My dad was 50 years old.
Wow, he was young.
He was young, 50 years old, on his way to work. Him and my mom had literally that day been talking about when they retire, because like I said, she got to retire early because he was making enough. So, then they talked about their like that day they were talking about that stuff. And so you just don't know.
Yeah.
You just don't. And so I'm here to say, like, if you have the means to put the paperwork together ahead of time, it's not saying you're going to pass. It's just saying that you're going to protect those that you love for when you do.
Yeah. And I just want to say that you're never too old to donate. They've recovered, I think it was corneas from like a 96-year-old. So you're never too old to donate.
Yeah. True.
Yeah.
True. You never know. And you never know with science, like, what they're going to be able to do, because like I said, anything that wasn't viable, we were like, science can have it, right? Like, the brain isn't viable at that point, but there's stuff in there that they can learn from. Right. So let's let them do that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay. What advice would you give someone who is considering becoming an organ donor?
I would say just do it. When you leave this earth and you head off to heaven or whatever you believe your afterlife is, you ain't going to need the body and you ain't going to need the parts.
Yeah.
So I would say give the gift of life. If you have the means to do it, and you never know what you can give. Like, you may think to yourself, because it was actually a conversation that I've had with my husband, because he had some addiction problems as a younger man. And he's like, yeah, but none of my body parts, even when I smoke cigarettes, blah, blah, right? I'm like, you don't have any idea what could be viable or not. You have no idea what they can use or not. Like, all you need to do is say yes. And then let the doctors and the scientists do the rest. That's what they went to school for. All you're doing is checking a box at the DMV and putting it together in your will, if need be, later for your family to understand why you did it. So I'm an advocate for it. I would donate for my children if tragic happened, knock on wood, that for them, like, I would donate from them, because it is a gift that, like, it's the gift of life. and short of God, and no one else can do that. Right. So it's like,
right.
I'm an advocate. I say, yes, I say, do it. I say, take that decision off of your family. It doesn't mean anything traumatic or tragic is going to happen. It just means that you're prepared for in case it does. That's it.
Yeah. And I just want to say too that some people are scared to register to donate because they think, if something tragic was, to happen, like in your dad's case, the paramedics, when they see that, they're not going to try to save your life. That's not true. It takes 2 independent doctors to declare someone brain dead in order for you to be considered an organ donor. And it's the 2 independent doctors that are not even taking care of your, like in your case, your dad, like they were not taking care of your dad. These are 2 independent doctors that had to declare your dad dead. So just because you're registered to donate does not mean that they're not going to try to save your life. Paramedics, doctors at the hospital, nurses, they're all equipped to save your life, not to get your organs. They're to save your life.
That's a powerful fact. That's a powerful fact to share.
Yeah.
I didn't know that either. I mean, I didn't assume that they would just be like, oh, they're an organ donor, but it's good to share that because the more people know, the more that they can make decisions that they feel comfortable with.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Becky, for sharing your story and your dad's beautiful story and how he gave the gift of life. And thank you to you and your family and your dad for giving others that second chance to live.
Thank you for having me again. Sorry, I cried through most of this audience. Sorry.
It's okay. That's what that's what's real, and that's what it was a very tragic situation, and you lost your dad, and it's just normal. You're grieving. You're still sad about your dad.
Yeah. And you're right. But I think it's just in society we are like, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to spill my emotions on you.
Nope. All emotions are valid. So don't ever feel bad because you're crying. It would be bad if you're not crying.
Yeah,
you're talking about your dad.
True. Who's this robot?
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. I really appreciate coming on here and being able to share the story and hopefully help people to hear that it's for the best. Like as scary or unsure as you can feel, it is definitely for the best. So I hope that that's what people hear today, that through the pain, good can come.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Becky.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope this episode inspired you. If you like this podcast, please share on social media and tag me on Instagram @TheBraveInHer. I would love to hear your stories of bravery.